Hello everyone, welcome back to another My 2015 tutorial. This is the airplane project we've been working on for quite a while. In this lesson we're going to work on doing virtual camera setups and getting these different shots from the animation that I've worked out. It's a pretty simple animation, just plays, the airplane just flies off and kind of comes around one of the mountains, and I'm just going to use a couple different virtual camera setups and styles to get some interesting footage going on. It's all good to go and create yourself a good model and a character rig, but if you can't get some good footage rendered out, it seems like it's a little bit of a waste. So I'm going to help you guys figure out how to create some good cinematography and some good virtual camera shots for your animations. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create myself a camera. So I know in our last lesson we created a GoPro style camera and stuck it on the back here. I just deleted that off because I'm just going to start over from the very beginning and just go through the entire process. Alright, so we're going to create cameras, camera. Now mine has a bunch of different camera setups in there, but the complexity of each one of these is just going to take a little bit of time, so I'm going to kind of go through some of these very simply. I might do a more advanced camera, virtual camera setup later on, but for now I'm just going to keep it kind of simple. So we'll just use a basic camera without a focus point. Okay, GoPro camera. Yeah, I know this isn't really a GoPro camera, but this will make it to where I will know what it's talking about when I look inside the outliner. This camera is the one that's attached to my airplane, so it's just visual information for me. All right, so I'm gonna go to the GoPro camera, and I'm gonna set it up to where camera shot is about like that. That looks good. I'm going to create one more of these cameras because I want there to be one in the front and one in the back, so I can kind of utilize more than one shot for a particular animation sequence. Okay, so this looks pretty good. Alright, that's good. Okay, so let's go back to our panels, perspective, and I want to change this to perspective. Okay. So I have two different virtual cameras I've created. I'm going to turn off the textures here because that's getting in the way of me being able to see my cameras, so I'll turn that off. Okay, so I want to actually be able to control these cameras based off of a pivot point that will be at the center here. So to do that, I'm going to actually put a group on each one of these cameras. That way I can rotate these cameras based off their current location and pivot off the airplane's moving location. So Control G, while I have this camera here selected, Control G, and now the pivot point is now at the world center here. I need to change, if you look at my, well, actually I think it is right. Yeah, it's okay, never mind. The angle I had here, it looked like my manipulator was tilted. So I thought that might have needed to be changed, but it doesn't. Okay, so we'll call this group GRP, and we'll call this GoPro Cam 1. I'll copy that name because I'm going to use it on the other one, Control C. Alright, and now I have my other camera here, and I'm going to group this one, Control G, and I'm just going to steal that last name and just copy and paste it in there. And I automatically change it to GoPro Camera 2 because you can't have the same names inside of mine. Alright, so now we have two different groups. We just need to parent those two groups into our main controller here. So if you select the camera, you see how it says GoPro Camera 1. You want the group, so you need to push up on the arrow keys, and that'll go up the hierarchy chain to where now it says Group GoPro Camera. You can also select it inside the outliner, but this is going to be the child as the group, and then the parent is going to be this control group here. So I'm going to shift select the master control, and I'll hit P for parent. So now when I select my master control, it also selects my camera, so I know it's working. So same thing over here. I'll select my camera, press up on the arrow key, so it goes up the hierarchy chain. So now I got my group selected. Shift select this control curve here and hit P. So now I have both cameras selected. Perfect. Alright, So as my animation plays forward, those cameras will go flying off with it. And that is, I scrub my timeline here, and that's exactly what happens. That's what I want. All right, so let's check the animation so I can see the area of interest I'm currently working with. So see, it takes off from here, then it should fly off over there. Okay, so it looks on frame 90 is where this particular animation clip ends. So I'm going to change my area of interest from 1 to 90. Okay, that looks good. Now I'm going to go and actually do some alterations to some of these groups that are through this camera here. So before, if you just go ahead and play this and look through this view here for camera. Nope, not that one. The other one. Either or will actually work, but I want to look at this one. So when I press play here, I have motion blur on. Let's go ahead and turn that off. So this camera not moving at all makes the, even though it's moving, it makes the animation feel kind of static and not dynamic. So to add a little bit of wibble and wobble to the camera as it's flying around, it makes it to where there's a little bit of a dynamic feel to this animation. So I'm going to add some animation to the group so that this will make it to where you'll feel a little bit more dynamic as you're watching this play through. So I'm going to jump back into my perspective and go perspective view. And with my group selected, see how it says Group Pro GoPro Cam 2. I'm going to start out by keyframing this on keyframe 1, or on timeline 1. There we go. And then I'm going to stick with increments of 24, since we're doing 24 frames per second, to add my wibble and wobble. So using my E hotkey to turn on my rotate tool. Let's make sure that I'm going to check something really quick. Make sure that I'm working on world. Let's switch that to local. That'll make it to where I can actually rotate this straight down and over rather than having it bent on a world axis. Okay, so on frame 24, I can close this off. Rotate this down slightly. I don't want a bunch of change, just a little bit. Okay, so 24 goes down a little bit. Let's say at 48. Rotates a little bit that way. That's good. And 72. We'll rotate down a little bit more. And on frame 90, let's wibble it back the other way. Alright, so now let's see what we got. Let's go back to our camera here. GoPro camera. Let's go back over here. Press play. Alright. That's good. So now there's a little bit of wiggle inside the scene. So it looks like the camera's actually moving. It's not the plane wiggling and wobbling through the air. But you kind of get that, as like you can tell, you can see how it seems like the camera dips a little bit, but it's not the plane actually dipping. So that looks good. We can test this against our ocean shader and sky dome that I have hidden on another layer. So I can turn this layer back on, turn back on textures, and let's see how that looks again. There we go. That looks better. Okay. So let's do the same thing for the other camera. Go to panels, perspective, camera 1. Okay, so same kind of deal. This thing needs a little bit of variation to it. So I'm going to go panels, perspective, back to perspective. Okay. I have to frame that in. Okay, and I want to look at this camera here, and we need to press up to go inside the group. All right, and now we need on keyframe, or on the timeline, frame 1, we're going to hit S. Go up to frame 24. Like I said, just a little bit of wiggle and wobble here. Go up to 48. $72. And 90. Okay, let's go back to our cameras here. We'll jump, oh, not that one, the other one. There we go. Okay, so now let's go back to frame one, kind of go along for the ride and see how this looks. So press play here. Okay. That looks pretty good. I think that maybe the GoPro camera in the back is a little bit close. Maybe I want to push that back, and maybe the same thing with the front. So let's go back to frame one. And since this by itself is part of a group and not this, I can actually move this back and not have to keyframe anything. So let's just go ahead and adjust that back a little bit. Let's do the same thing with the front one. There's the front one. It's kind of hiding the texture. Alright. So let's go ahead and go along for the ride again. There we go. That's a little bit better. Alright, let's go ahead and jump back into this one, I believe. Yeah, that feels better. Okay, I'm happy with that. So I'm going to turn off my textures again, turn off the sky dome, just so I'm not hogging resources in my viewport. Trying to think smart while I'm working here. Go perspective and perspective. And I'm going to go ahead and keep on saving as I'm working because, you know, sometimes my accidentally crashes and it's not lose our work. Okay. All right, we're looking good here. So I think that for scene one, I think that we're almost done. I'm going to maybe have like I'll have a resting camera. How about that? We'll do, we'll create ourselves one camera that will be, I want to be kind of right where it takes off at. So let's see where that point is at. So it needs to be further forward. That looks like it might be a good point to be in. Okay, I need to turn it around so it's, maybe I'll create two of them. Alright, so I'll make one for facing one way, one for facing the other, and I'll just turn them around. I'm not going to have these ones animated at all, but I just want to get, maybe I might have a little bit of animation, but not heavily animated like the groups are. Okay, so I got this one here. We'll call this one standing oncoming camera 1, and this one will be standing on or going camera 2. Having the names being descriptive will definitely help when it comes to switching back and forth between these guys in the preview. Okay, so let's go back to panels, perspective. We're going to do oncoming. So go back to frame 1 here. As it's coming, there it is. It flies right over the top. So my area of interest here is going to be from about, looks like frame 10 to frame 38, maybe even less, 30. Okay. And maybe do just a little bit of a slight lookup. So on frame 1, I'll hit keyframe. On frame 14, I'll hit keyframe. And then on frame 30, I'm going to look up just slightly as it's flying over. That'll delay out get some animation. Okay. Maybe on 14 I'll actually push this forward just a little bit. That way it's not so of an extreme kind of jerk up. Alright. There we go. That looks good. I like that. Alright. So that's one good shot. Let's go ahead and switch to the leaving one, see how that one looks. The going camera. Now, I'm not necessarily using all these shots. I just want to make sure that they're all available because perspective, panels, perspective, perspective. Okay. Panels, perspective, going. I just want to have a lot of variety available to me because, I mean, you might not use all this footage, but having it available to you to where you have some variations to maximize your animation you've created is important. You want to, take advantage of all your hard work the best you can. Okay, so let's go with a shot like that. So looks like the airplane flies through. Okay, so I want the that's a good shot right there. Maybe I'll put a keyframe right here, the S. Then as it's going by, I'll have it slightly look up. Let's get over to frame 90 there. I'll have it do one of those. See how that looks. I just kind of raised it up and just kind of rotated it a little bit. Yeah, that looks cool. Looks like it kind of like almost brushes against the mountain from that camera angle. That's neat. I like that. Let's go ahead and turn textures on, see how that looks. And we'll turn on our sky dome and everything. See how that looks. Yeah, I like that camera shot. That looks good. Okay. Okay. So we're doing good here. If we want to expand this, I can look at the other animation sequence I have. So let's go ahead and take a look at that and see if there's anything from there I want. So I'm going to go back to perspective, perspective, perspective. All right. There we go. We'll turn my oceans off, turn my textures off again. Okay, so I got a total of 4 cameras I've already created. And just for the simple animation here, I got a lot of things I can capture now. Alright, so let's look a little further here. I actually have this up to frame 350, so let's go ahead and come down over here. Okay, so I have this shot here where it looks like the airplane is, let's say, okay, so it starts on frame 90, so I'll change my area of interest to 90 over here. Alright, and looks like it comes banking around this mountain, so that's cool. And then it takes off in the other direction. So all right, so let's say I wanted to create one camera that's kind of on the ground and it's going to somewhat kind of follow this as it's taken off. So there's another option we can create, and maybe this will be my last camera I'm going to use. using a CV curve tool, so I can turn this surface into a live surface. So I click on this little magnet here. I'll turn my ground plane to a live surface for me to draw on. I'll activate my CV curve tool, and my CV curve tool will now draw on this actual ground plane. So I can click here, click here, click here, click here, click here, and just go along here. Okay, so looks to me like this this control curve will help guide my my camera for an interesting shot. So I think that 95, 100, yeah, 100 is where it's going to start. Okay. So one part with creating was what we're going to do here with this control curve is we're going to create something called an animated motion path. And to do that, you need to kind of figure out where you want this to be. Otherwise, I'm sorry, is where you want it to be, is where on the timeline you want this to be. Because if you don't put in those parameters, it'll take off from the start of your timeline, and it may be done before you want it to. And it might not go as long as you want it to. So let's see here, from 100 to, it looks like 200. All right, so I'm going to create a control curve that's going to ride along this path here. So I'm going to create a new circle. And I could create a camera and make a motion path for that, but if I do that, it takes away the power for me to be able to rotate my camera to be able to view the airplane as as this motion path is taking over. So I'm going to go to create NURBS primitives. I'm going to create this circle here. I'm going to call this one camera control main. Okay, and I'll call this other control I just created motion path. Okay, I'm going to shift select. So I have the control, and then I have shift selected the motion path, and I need to go to animate motion paths attached to motion path. I'm going to open up the submenu for this guy here. It says from start frame is going to be on frame 100, end frame will be on frame 200. Okay, so let's go ahead and hit apply and see what we got. Okay, so it's on frame 200, so attached over here. Let's go back to frame 100. See what we got. Okay, I can see the circles over there. So if I press play, there goes my motion path. Okay, so I got some problem we'll have to address right away, and we'll see how that goes. For one, I think I'm okay with this. I'm going to go ahead and close this down, but my control curve is a little bit too close to this mountain in some parts. It goes underneath the geometry. So I'm going to select the control vertexes and just raise them up where they go into the geometry. That way I don't have to deal with my camera accidentally going underneath the map, because that is not an interesting camera shot. Okay, I'll go to object mode again. So let's go ahead and turn off our live surface, and we'll create ourselves our last camera. So camera. Okay, and we'll call this one oops, what did I do here? There we go. Call this one motion path camera. Great. All right, so now I need to move this one back over to the start. Okay. And I don't want it to be right on the ground level, but pretty close. That way it gives me a little bit of buffer. It rotates and it's not where I want it to be. Okay, so this camera is actually going to be parented into this controller here, so that as this controller moves, it just drives my camera around, and I can have the freedom to be able to rotate my camera. So I have my camera selected, shift select the controller, and hit P. So now if you select the controller, it highlights this guy over here. Okay. I want to go ahead and add a new layer real quick for the ground, just because I don't want to accidentally click it anymore. So should have already done that. Ground layer, go ahead and hit save. I'll select this guy here, go to add selected objects, and turn it onto reference. So now I can't accidentally select it. There we go. Alright, so let's go ahead and go to our perspective, and we have motion path camera. Let's jump into that view. Okay, so now let's see what we have. I mean, I'm not going to edit it yet. I just want to see how this looks based off of just what we've randomly put in here. Okay, so I lose view of the camera pretty quickly. And the ride is pretty fast, so go back to frame 200. I'm going to have to adjust some of this. So to do that, I'm going to keyframe my camera on frame 100 here, and it almost loses it right away here. So I'm gonna have to find where the airplane went to. So it goes up and over. Okay. So there it goes. I'm going to jump out of this and go to my perspective. That way I can do a little bit of manually changing this. Usually when you're doing manual rotations inside of the camera or the item that so if you're inside this camera and you're trying to rotate it or through the camera view, usually you end up having some strange rotation. So that's the reason why I edited it or jumped out of that and went to the perspective. And I'm just going to split this into 2 different views so I can keep track of it and be able to edit it. Okay, here. So I rotate this guy. I don't need the textures on, so kill that. There's the camera. Okay. And this does take a little bit of finesse, so just be prepared for that. I have AutoKeyframe turned on, so some of these alterations I'm making, I'm not having to hit S every time. AutoKeyframe is great, but if you don't necessarily know what you're doing, you can definitely shoot yourself in the foot very easily with it. Okay. Forward to 40, where that airplane went to. So it's still straight above me. Okay. Up to 50. Let's find out where it went to. Looks like it's still straight up. Yeah, I'm not really liking this. Every 10 frames seems a little jittery. Let's go ahead and just see how that looks. Yeah, that's what I was afraid of. I think that I'm going to readjust this motion path because I think that it's starting and ending where it's at is making it to where it's a little bit convoluted. Like the drunken man camera, that's not really what I want. So let's go ahead and change this. Yes, you can definitely just delete off those keyframes. Just hold down Shift, drag it in the timeline, right mouse button over that red area and go to the delete option. Don't just hit delete or you'll delete your camera. Go to the delete in the submenu. Okay, so let's open up the motion path here. Let's see here. Yeah, I'm not sure exactly where I might have to just redo this motion path part. So let's see if I can just do it this way. Animate motion path. Let's change that from 100. Let's say that we're going to start it at 70, and we want to get to the end by 350. Okay, it doesn't like that because alright, so I'll have to unparent this and just redo it. It's okay. I'll just duplicate that, pull that off. And then I will just delete this one. Now that I get rid of the motion path, I'll just start over. Okay, animate motion paths. There we go. Let's go ahead and apply. And let's parent this one in. Alright, so let's close this and let's just see what we got now. Let's see if that goes a little slower. Okay. Oops, I did no-no. I was inside this camera view and I started moving it. That's a no-no. Okay, so let's go back to, there we go. Okay, so now let's scrub it. Alright, so let's go up to 70. Yeah, I keep breaking the rules here. I have a bad habit of doing that when I'm inside of a camera view. But without tearing it off and putting it on a separate screen, it's a little hard for me to do it while I'm recording a video. So I'm just trying to work with it. Okay, so let's see here. 5 frame 100 is in view. 110 is out. So maybe I should just change my camera view around. So that's capturing the flyover instead of the fly past. Might look better. So yeah, let's go with that. So we'll start with the keyframe at 140. And oops, I did it again. Told you, I'm not very good at doing this split screen thing with usually I have a tear off is what ends up happening. And when I have a tear off, I just grab one screen, put it on another one. So that's why I'm fumbling around a little bit here. Okay, so let's take away the danger. How about if we just do it like this? We'll set it up kind of like a roller coaster ride. I would like to do a little bit more refined work here, but with how much time I have left, I'm kind of burning video. So let's go ahead and just set it up like this. Okay, that still isn't. Let's ditch this guy here. So unparent. Let's get rid of that. We'll get rid of these guys. Break connections. We'll just attach this in straight into this control curve so you can see what I'm talking about. We'll go to Create, Animate, Motion Paths, Attach to Motion Path. Okay, so now it's going to just follow the curve no matter what. And we'll see how that looks. We'll just go into this view and go for the ride. Alright. Okay, so you can see how the motion path works. It follows this curve wherever it goes. But controlling your camera is a little bit more difficult when you're dealing with a control curve motion path. So usually you'll want to have your object actually follow the path. I was just kind of trying to get to work for this particular video so I can demonstrate how the motion paths work. But maybe in another video I'll do a more refined version of how the motion path can work, and I'll just do something on the fly like I just was trying to do. But let's just kind of go over what we had already covered here. Let's go back to our perspective view. Going back to our frame 1 here. Alright, so if I was to want to get into batch rendering, open up my outliner here, or my render settings, making sure that as I'm going through, so I'll be looking at my perspective. We had our GoPro camera 1 and just regular GoPro camera. So I would go to my cameras and make sure I was going to GoPro camera 1 or GoPro camera, and then I would go to each one of these to see how far in this was going. So from frame 1 up to, it looked like, let me turn on some stuff so I can see what I'm doing. And textures, there we go. So from frame 1 to frame 90, I would do my select camera, GoPro camera 1, and I'd also render off for GoPro camera, that is the front view version of it. That way I get both animation sequences rendered, and then I would go to check out and see how I'm looking at my standing oncoming camera. So I can do one camera here, let's say from frame 1 to frame 35 maybe. Let's do 40 maybe. So I'd render from 0 to 40 on that camera standing oncoming, and then I would go and check the standing going camera and change that to this one here to camera standing going. And let's see here, I would get from frame 30 to frame 90 it looks like, and that would be the end of this shot. So then after I have all these shots done, and the motion path one I would need to work on to make sure that that one was set up the way I wanted. It's just hard to set up a bunch of different cameras in a 30-minute window, so that one I'm going to actually let go. But these 4 cameras will give me a nice little shot of this airplane taking off, and I can take all 4 of those shots and bring them into After Effects and composite them into a short little clip of like probably 15 or 20 seconds. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions, put them in the comment section below, or if you're in my class, just go ahead and send me an email or ask me in class. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next lesson.